Hi, I'm Melanie Barr. Welcome to the She Built It Experience with Melanie. You're here because you want to experience the life and business that you crave. Join me as I talk to women who have successfully built it, a career and business that they love. We dive into the topic of how they built it and talk about everything from having the courage to make career leaps to the details of how to lead effectively, create successful teams, implement strategies for growth, and infuse tech innovation. Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. So let's dive in. Naomi Seddon is an international lawyer, thought leader, author, and presenter on workplace equality and issues impacting women at work. Naomi's legal career spans 3 countries over the last 16 years, where she has worked with close to 2,000 different companies across many different markets and industries. She is also one of the few lawyers in the world to hold legal qualifications from 3 different countries. In 2016, Naomi was named by Legal 500 as a top attorney in the United States for legal advice and counseling. Naomi, your legal career spans 3 countries over the last 16 years, where you worked with nearly 2,000 different companies, which is incredible. And to say that you are ambitious might be an understatement. Your clients are so lucky to be working with you with all of your knowledge and experience that you lend. Tell us about your legal career and why you are so passionate about helping your clients.
I started my career in-house in Australia. Obviously, you can tell from my accent that I'm not from the United States originally. I came here about 12 years ago, and I came here thinking I was going to be a California litigator, and that is not the path that my career has taken me on. I did litigate in California for a while, which gave me a great understanding of the legal system in the US, but that is not where my career now lies. I ended up falling into the area that I'm in really as a result of a chance meeting with an Australian government official. And I realised that there was this gap in the market with assisting companies around international expansion. And so that really was the start of my journey into this area, and it progressed and developed over the years. I've now helped over 400 companies expand their business globally. I do predominantly work within the APAC region and the US, although not exclusively. I've helped companies from all over the world. It's been an absolutely amazing career, and it's taken me all over the world, which has been phenomenal. And then as a result of my personal journey, it's led me in a little bit of a different direction. I joined a few boards about 3 years ago, and so I've been building my board portfolio. I now sit on 4 different boards, and I just released my first book on women's health issues in the workplace in December last year on my 40th birthday. So I do a lot of work in the diversity and inclusion space now, and that really is my passion.
Congratulations. And it seems to make sense because you understand life in Australia and life in the US. So it seems to make sense for you to want to help companies to do business in both places or in the other countries that you're licensed in.
Yeah, that has actually been a big part of why I've been successful, I believe, because a lot of people can advise on certain issues, but it does make a big difference when you've actually lived a particular process as well. I'm an expat. I've gone through the process of expanding into a new country. I know what that entails. I've also expanded businesses as an expat into this country and operated businesses in other countries. I've also lived in other countries. I've lived in London as well. It does bring a really different perspective when you're able to advise clients, not just from a high level, but I can actually talk to the practical realities as well.
Is there a favorite client case that you can share with us?
Oh, there's too many over the years. I've worked with some amazing organisations. I do love the companies that genuinely care about implementing better policies, practices for their employees, particularly those organisations that know there's always going to be some legal risk when you're looking to do something that's pretty innovative, but they do it anyway because they see the real value in it. And they're the organisations I really love working with.
Mm-hmm. And that seems to be a big topic among a lot of the women that I'm talking to. It's how do we look at the employee and what they need? How do we build a company around making sure our employees are taken care of? Because that's really how you build the best teams and get the best work.
Well, absolutely. And it's actually really the whole reason behind my book. It's not just a nice to have anymore, it's actually an essential.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of reasons why. And we all know about the Great Recession that's happening at the moment. Employees are now interviewing employers and not the reverse. Employees are seeking out companies that are actually providing better benefits, better support. They want to know what the diversity is like within the organisation and how the organisation really tries to assist employees. And I think COVID has changed everybody's perspective as well. We're now seeking out different types of opportunities. So this is something that organisations have to be looking at because there is a war on talent, particularly in some key areas and within some markets.
And I don't know if it's the optimist in me, but I look at this as an exciting time because change can be fun and change can be better for everyone at times.
We're at a point where it is absolutely critical. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, we've gone backwards massively on the issue of gender equality. Prior to the pandemic, it was bad enough. It was estimated to take about 100 years to close the gap. It's now estimated to take about 135.6. And I've seen some experts that are even estimating it could be longer. There's so much research out there to show the benefits that an organisation will experience by having better diversity within their teams at all levels, not just on boards. We've heard for a long time why it makes sense to have a diverse board, but it's actually just equally as important within the wider organisation as well. Profits can be close to 50% greater when you have diversity within organisations. That's just one statistic. There are so many, but it really is something that organisations need to be looking at. I wrote this book on women's health because my view is this is an issue that directly relates into the issue of gender equality in the workplace. And just to give you one small example of why I say that, we have more women over 50 now than ever before in history globally that are working within organisations. We have an older workforce. What does that mean? It means that more women within your organisation are going to be going through menopause and the impacts of that on the workforce. And that is not something that we've typically discussed before, but the workforce is changing and we need to be adapting accordingly.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And to your point about going through COVID and women in the workforce, as a mom of twins, I'm a mom of twins. I know you are too. Homeschooling was a challenge and it fell a lot towards women. And I see how if they had to make a choice between how to care for their families, I see how that choice could have been incredibly difficult. And you are the author of Milk and Margaritas. We have not yet shared the name of your book while we were chatting. Share with us the topic of your book and why you were compelled to write it.
I've presented all around the world on the issue of women's health in the workplace and why I want organisations to start thinking about this issue more. And every time I would present on this, I would have a line of women at the end, lining up to speak to me saying, you've got to write a book. And so I knew it was something that I was always going to do. It was something I felt compelled to do. But I wanted to have a kind of an end to my journey before I got to that point. I felt like it was really important as a female leader to write about my experiences, the mistakes I made along the way, what I learned. And I also wanted to create a handbook of the business case. So I wanted organisations to be able to pick up my book and go and start having conversations within their own organisations and creating that business case for why it makes sense to care and also starting to create the business case for change. What led me to all of this? Well, in the space of 2 years, I lost 4 babies, one at 5 months. I then went through about 100 tests. I had 9 surgeries, including a hysterectomy. And then I was very lucky to have children by a surrogate. However, they were born extremely prematurely at 28 weeks. And so we spent almost 4 months in the hospital. That all was pretty painful, as I'm sure you can imagine, but that unfortunately was not the end of my story. I then went through a very public legal battle to gain parental rights in Australia, where my husband and I are both from, because I felt very strongly that nobody was going to tell me that my children were not mine. after everything that we'd been through.
And can you share with us why? Why did you have to go through that process?
Yeah. So commercial surrogacy is illegal in Australia, but it actually goes further than that because it's a crime in 3 states. So I like to say I became the accidental advocate for surrogacy rights in Australia. It was certainly not my intent, but that was what resulted. And I now sit on the board of Surrogacy Australia as we're trying to advocate for change in this area. And it's become so critical that we do make changes, because at the moment, with the situation that's going on in the Ukraine, there's been so many surrogate babies, as we've all seen in the media, that have been in this terrible situation there. And there's been a number of Australian parents that have children there. And one of the reasons why families are forced out of Australia is because there is just such limited access to surrogacy within Australia. So we desperately need change. And this recent situation has just highlighted that another level.
And you bring up women in the workforce and the things that we go through. I went through IVF as well. And I remember going into work and they're putting so much different chemicals in your body on a daily basis in order to have children. And it was the only way we could have children. In order to have them, you have to go through these things. And I remember the challenges of sitting through meetings. And to your point, that's where I think companies and organizations can be mindful of a human being and what they're going through as they're showing up to work.
Absolutely. And there's a few different aspects to this. I think, firstly, it's an issue that relates directly to the gender pay gap, because women who are experiencing health issues or fertility issues typically have to take time off work. A lot of the time, they don't want to tell their company about it because they're fearful of what the implications are going to be. So it does have direct implications in that way. I think the other thing is absolutely right. I mean, I was fortunate, I suppose, that I only had to do 3 rounds. Some people go through this for years and years. I've got friends that have done 50 or 60 rounds over 10 years. I mean, the impact to your body mentally, I think a lot of people don't realise what is actually involved in IVF either. I mean, typically when you're going through a round, you're there every second day, sometimes every day. It is a big commitment emotionally, financially. It is a time commitment. And if you don't feel comfortable enough to be able to speak to your employer about this, then it's a big problem. This year's theme for International Women's Day I loved because it was break the bias. And I think this is so applicable to women's health issues in the workforce. It is something that we just haven't discussed. And there is still this stigma around women's health. And I try and talk to companies about this very issue because I think step one has to be having conversations, empowering your managers to have better conversations with employees, but starting to have open conversations about things like fertility and menopause so that we can start breaking down that stigma or that bias around some of these issues.
It's so true. And you remind me of something. I remember when I was pregnant with the twins, I was working with an all-male team and I was an entrepreneur at the time, but I did not tell them until I was 5 months pregnant. I saw them at 3 months pregnant and I think they might have just thought I was gaining weight. But I didn't tell them till 5 months pregnant because I didn't want them to think, oh, she's going to step back or not involve me as much. And then when I didn't even tell them I was having twins. I told them I was having a baby. I was able to do this because we were all spread out across the country. We were a team that would talk virtually and then occasionally have to meet in person. Then I announced the babies were born and they said babies. And I said, yes, I had to. But I was even worried. And I was working for myself. So I can see how there is that fear around, oh, maybe they won't take on as much responsibility or maybe they're going to step back.
Right. This is not just a male-female issue, by the way.
No, it's not.
Women are definitely very critical of other women when it comes to this issue as well. And it's something that I've written quite extensively about in the book. And I was guilty of this too. I've definitely been guilty of this in my career. You know, I had 9 surgeries over 2 years. And then I would have a staff member that would say, oh, I can't attend this hearing because I've got the flu. And I would think, oh my goodness, I just had major surgery and I was on a call that afternoon and you've got, the flu and you kind of, and that was wrong of me, right? There has to be a better way than simply pushing through, and we have to, get better at supporting our staff. And honestly, There is research to show that when we do that and we support wellness within the workplace and we find ways to support our employees, they can actually be up to 10% more profitable and productive for the organizations. We're all guilty of it at times.
Yes.
We've all got this implicit bias, but there literally are financial reasons and business reasons why it makes sense to be more supportive of our employees in these situations. But yeah, I mean, I can completely relate. And it's one of the reasons why I did such crazy things like have surgery and then, I would wake up after I'd been under a general anesthesia and get on a conference call. I mean, I was wrong in those situations, not only for myself, but I was also setting a really bad example for other women as well.
Yeah. And I think it's open to human aspect. We're all looking deeper at how we're human beings and we want to accomplish things in our work and in our life. But at the core, the technology just speeds our pace, it seems.
Well, that's another big issue. Where is the line between the workplace and our personal life anymore? It's not even that it's become blurred anymore. It's like there is no line. It doesn't exist. And I think we all need to get much better at setting some boundaries. And that was something that I was really poor at before, and I've definitely got a lot better at. And I have to say, the year that I finally decided to make some changes in this area, and it was really because it was forced upon me, I ended up back in hospital for my 10th surgery. And I thought at that point, I have to make some changes here. Like something has to give because there's only so much of my body that they can cut out.
You're also passionate about what you do, and I am too. And when you have that passion, it can be hard to strike the balance.
Yeah, it is. We all struggle with it. We all have times where we don't get the balance right. The other thing is we've all been told this big lie as women that, you can have it all. And I think, yes, you can have it all, but not all at the same time. And we can't beat ourselves up about that. I know that there are times when, like this week, I've had a crazy week because I've just been traveling and I've been working till 2 a.m. and I haven't seen my kids. And then I feel those feelings of guilt around, oh my goodness, I'm not spending time with them. And you have to stop yourself. It's not every day that I'm doing that. I'm going to have this bad week because I'm, trying to catch up, and I will make sure that I spend some time with them over the weekend. And we have to know that that is how life is sometimes and not beat ourselves up over that.
And I know balance isn't always a liked word, but I think it really is having one week where, okay, you're working a lot more, but maybe in the next week you get to step back a little bit and spend more time with family and friends, or spend more time giving yourself that healthcare. And to me, I think that's a form of balance. It's just finding everyone's unique form of balance.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is so important though, and I think it's something that not enough people focus on. Particularly, it's not just about spending time with our kids. We need to focus on wellness for ourselves as well. And as women, entrepreneurs particularly, we're very bad at that at times. And yeah, that was
guilty too.
Yeah, I mean, we all are. And honestly, the year that I did introduce wellness into my life and I got better at it, and yes, I fell off the wagon, there were days and weeks.
Don't be hard on yourself.
No.
We all do.
Exactly. I actually was more profitable that year than any year in my entire career. And that really, like the proof is in the pudding. You do look after yourself more. You're a lot more likely to be productive and successful. Honestly, the truth.
That's so true. What was the writing and publishing experience like? And what would you say to someone going through that process?
It was so interesting. I'm someone that has always loved writing. I've written a lot of articles through the years. I've written for Huffington Post. I write a lot of, legal updates. And so when I started this journey, I thought, I can write a book. I've written, all my life. I've always loved writing. I did a journalism degree with my law degree, so I thought, I've got this. And then I started the process and I realized it is an entirely different world. There are things about writing a book that I just had absolutely no idea about. I also didn't appreciate how many people are involved in the process or need to be involved in the process. The best thing I did, and I highly recommend to everybody, is hire a book coach, because a book coach is absolutely invaluable. I had an amazing one, Jazz Rollinson. She is incredible. She really got me from the point of script to a published author. just keeping you accountable and not just talking you through the script, setting goals, and you don't know what you don't know, right?
So true. And it had to be fun to learn a new industry.
It was great. And I've definitely got the writing bug now. I'm about to start my second book, which I'm very excited about. I'm actually going to do a workplace series. So the next book's going to be on neurodiversity in the workplace.
Nice. We can't wait to read it. When it comes to leadership, what is your advice for managing your team so that you work together and end up with the best outcome for your clients?
Have conversations. Don't be afraid to have conversations. It's something that so many managers are fearful of. They might see someone struggling. And I have conversations with companies all the time about these exact issues. They'll come to me and say, we need to terminate this person, for example. And then you start talking to them about, well, what's actually going on here? Often you'll find out, well, they've been a great performer previously, but now something's happened and they're just not performing. And so you start talking to them and saying, well, have you had discussions with the person? Oh, no, but we've heard on the grapevine that they might be going through, a divorce or they've got some kind of health issues. Don't wait to that point where you get to the termination. Terminations are expensive. Firstly, you're often paying legal fees. You've often got to pay some kind of separation. There are recruitment costs associated with terminating someone, finding someone new. There's, productivity losses. It is time and money when you have to manage someone and it gets to that point. There are often, not always, I recognise there are some situations where you need to move people on, but I do see a lot of situations where if you had have just had a conversation with the person about how you might be able to support them, and empowering them to tell you what they need to succeed. I think that is absolutely critical. I think employees have a role here too, though. I think so often what happens is we create this tension because an employee will come and they'll say something like, I'm going through all these health issues, and so it's impacting my work, where we need to start flipping the conversation and saying, this is what's going on, and these are some of the things I could really use right now to help me succeed in my role. And then you start talking about solutions rather than problems.
So the employee is not afraid to come and actually share what's going on in their life. I had a team member working for me, and she wanted increased responsibility. I went ahead and increased the responsibility and the role. And then I thought to myself, I don't think she's enjoying this. So we had a conversation, and it turned out that she didn't. You learn in those moments to put people in the right place to do the things that they love, and then they thrive. But you are so right. An organization has to be open about hearing that feedback.
Absolutely.
And when I was in business development, I used to always think it's so much more expensive to gain a new client than to keep the clients that you currently have happy.
Yes, absolutely. It's so true. And the same as with employees.
Right. Yeah. With people who are working for you, rather than having, to your point, to go out and find someone new. And to your point, it makes so much more sense to just have those open conversations and to make sure that everyone is happy.
You should be setting people up to succeed. And I think not enough companies check in with their people either. We need to know, what is this person's, exactly what you said, what is this person's career aspirations? What are they passionate about? Is there a different area that they really want to be working in? And sometimes that might lead to a conversation about, well, is this the right role for you, or is this the right organisation even? And that's okay too. It's far better to get to that point and have that discussion and support that person to find what it is they're passionate about than to continue on and go down a process that ends ugly.
So true. And She Built It's mission is to inspire and empower you to experience the life and business that you crave. And we all crave something different. So if you don't fit into that role, there is someone else that does. And that's the beautiful thing.
Absolutely. It's so true.
You are a mom of twins building an incredible career, and there are so many layers to life: our friends, family, work, travel, self-care, and making sure we take time for ourselves, which we talked about. What advice would you give for someone who's managing a busy lifestyle?
I think it's not beating yourself up. I'm really trying to implement wellness into my life. But the other thing is that I would add to, that long list that you just went through, Melanie, is giving back as well. I'm a big believer in finding time to give back in some way. Gosh, with everything going on in the world right now, we all need to be so thankful for what we have in our life and our blessings. And I think we all should be finding a way to give back. When you add that on top of the Liz, it's hard. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. And I've been feeling overwhelmed the last few weeks, thinking about all these things and how I feel. I mean, there's not enough hours in the day, right?
I think as a mama of young twins, there's really no way to avoid that at this age and stage, because I'm with you.
No, it's a challenge. But I think you've just got to take each day as it comes, try not to get stressed about it. I am a big planner. I have lists. I've got, a whiteboard here. I'm not someone that just is very digital. I like to see things in my office. I like to tick things off. I love whiteboards and spreadsheets, and I couldn't do all that I do and keep it all organized in my life without calendars and lists and spreadsheets. So I'm very big on that. There's also something really satisfying about being able to tick things off a list too.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the creative process and kind of a free flow, it's nice to write things down because it's less structure. You can be a little more creative and free flowing.
Definitely.
I ask this question at the end of every episode because, as we've talked about, it's so important to bring joy into our daily lives. Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. What is one tip that you can leave with us today about how you find and live your joy?
Find your passion. Life is far too short to be doing something that you don't love. We're never going to love every single day that we're at work. I mean, I think that's impossible. We all have good days and we all have bad days. But if you are not feeling passionate about the work that you're doing, then I really encourage you to try and pivot or move into something else, because we only get one shot at this life. And I think it's just so important to try and find your passion. But also, I would say, make sure that you carve out that time for the special people in your life, because it just makes the hard days so much more worthwhile.
So true. Such good advice. Thank you so much for being with us today, Naomi. You have built and are still building an incredible career. Please share with our listeners how and where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you. You can find me at naomiseddon.com or on Instagram at Milk and Margaritas.
If you are new to She Built It, we'd love for you to join us. We offer community memberships, masterminds, innovative virtual events, and meaningful connections to entrepreneurs and corporate leaders. Please also check out our She Built It shop, curated products from women-owned businesses who put their heart and soul into their beautiful and innovative products. We offer She Built It business consulting and the She Built It blog. Thank you to everyone around the world who joined today. Thank you to my editor, Rich Streffolino. Please download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, together, let's let nothing stop us from experiencing the life that we crave.